do is
folks.
explain Doug from AWP on how he had the incorrect party spot. I am leaving. I just pulled out of Prosser Family Campground, and I am going to pull down to the area that leads to the sanctuary and where Kiely ultimately went into the water. So I just wanted to show when he said it is a sharp left turn off of a nice paved road onto a very rutted, rough road. And that's why he said it's not a wrong turn road, because he was thinking she was coming from the area of the campground, the designated campground, which she was not. So right now I'm going about 6-7 miles per hour. There are really big ruts that you have to drive around. This is where Doug was probably saying he almost tipped over the RV several times. Like this bump is about a good 3 feet deep. This is how I know he had the wrong party spot, because he would say there's no reason why she would turn down this road off of the nice paved campground road. Well, she would turn down this road if that's where the party was. This is the road that everybody took, whether they went to the sanctuary or to the lower party area closer to the water. Some areas aren't too bad, but I mean, when you get a pothole, you get a really, I mean, it's not a pothole. It can just about swallow a car. So right now I'm going about 8 miles per hour. You can go faster, but you'd be airborne over these bumps. Now I'm in a small Ford pickup truck. This is the road that goes to the sanctuary. When Kiely came out of there, she needed to have taken a left to get back to that paved road that I was just on. She did not. She took a right. Sorry, I don't have fancy equipment here. So this is the way she went. Try to get it a little bit clearer. Okay, I'm going to try to get up to about 11 miles per hour, which I'm at right now. I am at 12 miles per hour. So you can see, this is not, I would not be driving that fast. I put it at about 10 to be safe. This is the other Y. This is the left that goes, look at the size of that pothole down there. This is the left that Kiely took to go to the water. That's the right, that's the upper road that the party goers, maybe after they went down to the water, that's the road they took. So Kiely took this left. Some really big bumps here at the beginning. Like I've got to go pretty much all the way over to the side. Really big bump there on the left. I mean, okay, I'm going to try to get up to 11 miles per hour here. I'm going 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I got up to 18. I'll go ahead and get out here. I had my seatbelt on. This is the grassy berm. Very big drop off on the other side of the grassy berm. You can see her memorial. Right about where I'm standing now, right about now, you can see some ATV tire tracks. You really wouldn't want to drive any further past where I am right now. There's the island, the road back, and my truck.
There we are. Sorry, that caught me a little bit by surprise. Hey, Terry, how are you doing? You muted.
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you here. This was your 4th trip to Prosser, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yep, I was there August, I wrote it down, August 12th, and then the 18th and 19th, and then September 10th and 11th, and then October 9th and 10th.
And it closed the 11th for the rest of the year, is that right?
Yep, when I pulled, when I pulled out on Monday, basically right when that video started, they closed the gate behind me for the season. It's done.
So you were like literally the last person out.
I was, because the campground host kept me chatting for a while when I was supposed to be packing up. So they actually closed the gates at noon, but I was out of there after noon. There was nobody else. It really was a very eerie feeling it's like the last one out before the big snow comes or something. It was pretty eerie.
So I had kind of an epiphany when I saw that video the first time, and I think Verna Cooey had done the same drive. When you drove there and you stopped there, and I mean, I don't know if she stopped there as well, but the fact is you stopped there, and we only found out later that Kiely stopped there as well. And I couldn't help thinking, like, what was she thinking when she stopped there? And obviously you were there in the daytime, and so I ended up going again to Gray Users Investigative. Let's just bring that image up in quickly. So let's just do this and that. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Terry?
Oh, yes, definitely. Watched that many times.
So it looks like the turnoff is about here. Is that right? Round about here.
Yes, that looks correct.
And it just makes you wonder, did she think this light over here, that this is her vehicle where it went in there, but did this light here get her attention? So when she stopped there and she looked this way, did she see a light here? And obviously everything would be pitch dark. And did that light was that the deciding factor in terms of, should I go straight or should I go left? You know what I mean? Or should I go right or should I go left at that Y junction? You kind of get the feeling she saw that light and thought, well, if I go left, that's where the light is, that's the right way to go, right? Because you kind of get the feeling she was following lights to begin with. The other thing that's, I think, quite interesting is these lights here, it's possible that some of these lights reflected on the water, and I don't know whether she would have seen any of that peripherally. I doubt it. I think you also showed in another video the depth. When you're on that upper road, just how far down it is, you don't really easily see anything down below. So I would actually imagine she wouldn't have been able to see these lights in the same way that they wouldn't have been able to see her. And you made a really good video with that. But does it make sense to you that this light here or that light there, while she was stopped at that Y junction, made her think, I think it's that way?
I think that's definitely a possibility. I took that road on my way out. It's the Prosser Dam Road that takes you on the opposite side there where those lights are. And there's some pretty big neighborhoods over there, nice neighborhoods. There's a golf course. It's beautiful. So some condos and some large houses. It's definitely developed over there. If she was disoriented, maybe she would think that was a road and she could drive through. I've also thought that at that spot, if she realized the cars in front of her, that was not the way she wanted to go, there's really no other way to turn around there. So possibly she took a left thinking, hey, I'll just whip down here, turn around and go back the way I came. I thought that was a possibility as well, that she wanted to turn around.
I'm not sure if I want to deal with a lot of these questions because they sort of circular. So it's like, I thought Kiely was familiar with the area. Then you go through the narrative of, well, I was in the area and I got disoriented, right? And then you go to the narrative of, well, if it's dark and the lake is not symmetrical, then you can kind of get disorientated. But then they say, well, she wasn't intoxicated. So it's kind of just a circular thing that doesn't really go anywhere. So then I guess the flip side to that is she was completely familiar with the area. So was she not driving? Did she not make a mistake? So then you take that further and you say, okay, so if she wasn't driving and she made a mistake, then what's your explanation for what happened? So I thought Kiely was familiar with the area. Okay, she was familiar with the area, so she wasn't driving because she couldn't have taken a wrong turn, right? So then where does that theory take you? Or do you just ask the question over and over again? What's your response to that?
To her being familiar with the area, or just the circle of conversation?
No, to the thing of, I thought Kiely was familiar with the area.
Yeah, nobody really knows that for sure. I mean, somebody may have said she's, her family has camped there or she's partied there, but I've never heard anyone come out and say she knew that area like the back of her hand. People seem to have just repeated that. Now, when I talked to her dad, when we were standing at that spot, I didn't come out and directly ask him that question, but we did talk about the water levels, and I just kind of generally said, wouldn't anyone local in this area know that the water level drops every summer? And he goes, I live just 15 miles away in Tahoe, and I didn't know it dropped this much.
Yeah, that's the other thing, and I actually think I saw this. You'd actually sent me so many videos, I didn't manage to download them all, but I think you measured the water as receded now about 70 feet, so around about 15-20 feet beyond the actual level when the vehicle was found in the water. So that is quite a lot, eh?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to stay on that question. I thought Kiely was familiar with the area. So if you think in a kind of global way and you say, how old is Kiely? How old was Kiely? Well, she was 16 years old. So how long had she actually been driving? So I think that's really what you've got to ask is, how long had she been familiar with the area as a driver, right? How often had she driven to Prosser, and how often had she driven there as part of a party, or how often had she driven there and camped? And when you've been there 4 times, right?
Yep, 4 times.
So when you went there, were there certain areas you went to on the 4th time and the 3rd time that you'd never gone to before?
Yes, I explored a little bit more each time. The first time I didn't drive it. I just, down to the peninsula, I just went on foot. I did drive up to the sanctuary, but then the next time I'd already done that drive and took a video of that. So it actually wasn't until just on Monday, the very last day, that I drove to the back side of the sanctuary. I had seen it from a distance, but I hadn't seen how it was to travel that. I think the main thing that I wanted to see, after the fire cam video came out, and, we could tell there were cars coming from that direction, I wanted to see how much they could see on that peninsula. Of course, I was there, it's daylight is different, but obviously you can see better in day. And I was pretty surprised by the scrub brush around there, like in the picture right behind you, that the scrub brush is about 4 feet tall. I mean, some of it comes even close to my shoulders. So on a map, it looks like you could just drive over that, but you can't. So
Yeah, I
that was
think
my main point.
I think that question also implies that you go there and then you've seen everything, and it's very simple. And I mean, can I ask you, when I know on the fourth time you went to that little hill, had you ever driven that road before?
No, I
Have you
walked it, but I
ever
hadn't driven it.
had you ever driven the upper road to that hill
No,
before? So, and you'd been there 4 times. Had you ever, well, let me say it like this. Up until now, have you driven the lower road that connects the isthmus to the actual isthmus, the
no,
hill? You
I
still
didn't
haven't driven
drive
that
it.
road?
No,
Yeah.
I walked it, but I didn't drive it.
So, so that's your experience. There's also law enforcement people searching, and they thought they were familiar with the area as well. They searched for about 2 weeks, and they thought, okay, well, we've searched and we think we know what's going on. The thing that we try to address in the opening of this video was to say, when Doug said that was not a wrong turn road, and he also said, what did he say? Something about she wouldn't have turned left, but she actually turned right. Remember that? And it kind
Yeah.
of felt like Doug, maybe I'm wrong, but it kind of felt like Doug wasn't actually familiar with where the sanctuary was and where the party site was, which comes to this whole question of, oh, but I thought you were familiar with the area. That's not actually where Kiely was. And that's something we've kind of gone through over and over and over again, is the map. There was never a ping shown on a map anywhere, as far as I know. There was where Kiely was last seen, but there was never. I feel this is an error made by law enforcement. They should have said, this is the location of the ping. And maybe they felt that was sensitive in terms of law enforcement. Maybe while they thought it could be a foul play situation, maybe they thought that's a bit of a sensitive area, we're not going to say. But I do think, in terms of searching for it, don't you think that could have just shortened the investigation by so much?
Absolutely. And it wasn't just that, having the party spot wrong was an innocent error. We all made that because it was reported to be at the family campground where I camped. But I think it just shows, not doing your homework. And the problem with that is one misconception then snowballed because
Yeah.
he thought there's no way she would have taken that route. Then it makes other things look even more suspicious. They just compound. So
Yeah.
it's not really that one thing that I want to keep drilling home. It's just, it kind of built off of that.
I think exactly what Marilyn is saying is a problem with this case, which is someone makes an assumption and they never seem to deviate from that assumption. They sort of make an assumption and then they dig in their heels and they refuse to think about anything else. That's how you end up not finding something and also not learning anything else. Because if you kept saying, I thought Kiely was familiar with the area, it's not to do with that, it's got to be an abduction, it's got to be foul play, then you would kind of tend to say, well, then I don't think she's in the Prosser campground area. I don't think you should be looking for her there. There's foul play. She drove off. She wasn't drunk. She drove off, or someone stole her car. And where you need to look for is somewhere else. That's where that discussion takes you, right?
Yes.
And in other words, when you, the investigator, are unfamiliar with that area, like, forget whether Kiely was or not. If you, the investigator, are unfamiliar with that area, then you can't go, I guess this could have happened. And it feels to me like either people are still unfamiliar with the area, or they kind of don't want to go down that route and say, oh, okay, you know what I mean? They just don't, it's just like, I will not think about that because of whatever,
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's a lot more to be explored back there too. You really need a 4-wheeler or a motorbike. I mean, that's the way to really get to know that terrain. I would say that most of the people just stay on the paved road. Those are rough roads back there. I'm surprised that many kids would take their cars back there. But you know, kids do what kids do.
Yeah. So is there, hey Bria, good to see you. Is there another video you'd like to play next? You'd like us to play next?
I think there was just after that one is just a short one that shows the last little bit of road, and I think that's important. The last little bit before she went into the water there. I think that's important because it does get smoother there, like noticeably smoother. So
Okay.
when you
Do
first
you
take
wanna... Okay, carry on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, when you first take that left, it's got those huge ruts right at the beginning, but then there's 30, 40 yards where it's the nicest stretch of road since I got off the paved road.
Right before the end.
Yeah, so you would almost think, usually a smoother road would indicate that you're getting back to the good road. That's how I would think of it. But it also, you can't really see the slope from those videos, but it's downhill the whole way, so it's very easy to gain speed. And traction's not good. It's that really hard packed sand gravel. I didn't test it because I didn't want to go over. I do have 4-wheel drive, but I mean, I don't need to be out there on the point, making a fool of myself. So
Terry, do you want me to play where you drive right to the edge? Do you want me to play that clip?
yeah, I think it's just 1 minute.
Okay, let me see if I can find it.
It would be the number 2. It's like 1 minute 16 seconds.
Okay.
If I get my notes
I think I've got
out.
it. No, it's not that one.
All right, folks.
I think
think
it's
that-
this one. Yeah, it's 1 minute 16. I've got it. Okay, I'm going to play it. And there we go. You can walk us through this if you like.
Yeah, I stuck my phone out the side so you could kind of see the road.
This is
And this, I think I wanted to do this because it matched up with the fire cam, so you can actually see it.
This would be the part where you could gain some speed because it's going downhill all the way to the point there. So I'm going to check.
So what's quite interesting is you can actually see the side curve in the road already just from this position. You can see that the road curves slightly to the right just from this position.
I'm going 11 right now, and I'm going faster. 16.
So can you see right at the end there, it actually curves. That's where that grassy verge is. So keep your eye on how naturally you driving there, you would go straight, and right at the end, you would turn slightly to the right. That's what you did, right?
Yeah, and you can see my tracks from going through that before. I did it the same both times without trying.
There's the grassy verge right there.
Washboard. Uh-oh, the land is disappearing. I'm going to go to the right. And I'm going to bump my way down that hill and probably come in, hit the water sort of sideways.
Yeah, it's so hard to see from that perspective, but I mean, it drops off right where my tires are. Like I would not have wanted to drive any further.
Yeah.
It looks flat on the video. I think maybe I've got some pictures that show it more from the side. You can see the slope.
Yeah. Okay. Shall I play this one? Can you see my screen? Which one do you want me to play next? Video 2. Let's try that one.
Yeah, I think you just did too.
Okay, I'm now leaving.
I'm just trying to think of the order that I went in. Then the third
area.
Let's just listen to what you say here. Okay.
Okay.
Back the way that toward where Kiely went into the water. That wind chime island is off to the right. Now there was another little road that went off that way. I might just check that out quick if it looks like it might be passable. But I just wanted to give you guys an idea of this road. See, I need to go extra slow just because I don't know. There could be motorbikes or ATVs or something coming. I just want to be extra careful. I don't need to any further tragedies attached to this area here. It is Monday, last day of the season out here. Okay, I'm gonna take this other little road because Nick had talked about.
Okay, so that is going to that hill, right?
Yes.
There you can
Yeah, it
kind of
went a
see
little
it there.
bit. It went a little bit backwards. There was one before that shows me going to the back side of the sanctuary. This is coming back from the back side
Okay.
to the
Yeah.
front.
But this is the route that those party goers would have taken, right?
Absolutely.
that
Those were
were-
those other lights that you could see on the fire cam as she was on the peninsula. There were those lights coming from there.
Okay. So I really want to get to the video where you show it from the perspective of could they not see Kiely like in their rear view mirror? I'm just not 100% sure where that is. But anyway, you went down here. But what's quite interesting to see when you just show this video is there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of brush, and obviously the beach, like a beach at the sea, is a lot lower than everything else. So it's going to be at night with all of that visual interference, you aren't going to easily see anything. And that works both ways. It works from the perspective of them coming to her aid and seeing something, and also it works from the perspective of, hey, where did they go, right? If she's behind them and they go over a dip, you're not really going to see anything.
Right.
It actually feels to me like it was a matter of seconds. If she left just a little bit earlier, she would have been able to see those lights because they would also train onto trees and things. She just maybe left 10 or 20 seconds earlier. She may have followed them and been like, oh, okay, this is the wrong way, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, if you let this one play right at the very end, you can see what the where the peninsula is from the little tree island. I think it's kind of interesting because you actually can't see the peninsula that Kiely went off of from this spot. So it really opens up there. That makes me think that vehicles would easily park down there. And it's kind of it's a cute little hill right there with a tree on it, and there's a wind chime up there.
So there we are. There's the view backwards, and you can't see over that slope unless you drive onto it.
Yeah, and I think I zoom in here, and what's interesting is that point that you do see jutting out, that's not the same peninsula she went off of. There's another one in between the two that she went off of. So they really couldn't see anything from there unless lights were shining out further into the water than they normally would.
Yeah, okay. So I don't really want to make this a binary, let's prove it's not foul play. I sort of feel like if you feel that that's the case, you should go. There are a lot of other channels that make that case. So, you know, I don't really want to make this discussion about that. I want to kind of make it for those of us on this channel who've followed things, you know, the way we have, other things that we've learned that are quite interesting. So I don't really want to go that route, but I just want to address something here. Someone called Casey says, the windows were down. Why would she not just go out the window? Now, I think what's quite interesting is it actually, one thing that shocked me with the Gray Hughes Investigates footage was that it appears that her headlights were on up to a minute after she went into the water. And in my imagination, I thought the moment she hit the water, that the electronics would short out, and that isn't what happened. And so you actually had a situation where you can actually imagine that the car landed in the water, probably was a big surprise, but she had at least a minute to get out the vehicle. And then you could even say, maybe, we don't know this for sure, but if the vehicle lights were on, you could say, if the windows weren't already open, she could actually open them using the car's electronics, right? And so obviously she doesn't know what we know, which is the moment your vehicle hits the water, try and get out. Now, she may have tried to get out by trying to open the door. That wouldn't have worked. That may have taken 10 or 20 seconds. Then she may have powered down one window. And by the time that window opened, she could almost have gotten out. She may have just reached for a phone, but then, and so someone says, why would you not just get out the window? Well, she didn't get out the window. So part of the answer, I think, is disorientation, shock, surprise, and also underestimating it. I think I certainly have that perception studying all of these vehicles going into waters. The vehicle lands in the water and you sort of think, oh, wow, nothing's happening. And it seems like you've got all the time in the world. And then suddenly something does happen, the vehicle's nose goes in. And then when things do start happening, it suddenly happens extremely quickly. We also saw with a New Zealand lady that she was completely sober and it happened in broad daylight, and she couldn't even get out her own vehicle. And you even had someone trying to smash it open, and they said we only just barely saved her. So I think that's the answer. I think people feel very confident. If I went into the water like that, I would just get out. Well, that lady in New Zealand in a BMW couldn't. And there were 4 people around that vehicle, and they barely got her out in time. So I think that's the answer to that. But I don't really want to deal with a binary thing of it's foul play because, and then you make your argument and no one really pays attention to it. And then there's another one and another one. This is really about what did you learn? What did we learn that we didn't already know? That's quite interesting. That's really all we want to do, right? Because I don't think I think when we explain these things, people have made up their mind long ago. Like, no matter what, I'm not going to change my mind. Well, then there's no point in explaining it. Thanks for that, Paddy Dunn. Thanks very much. Someone also said, I saw a channel saying that that there are channels saying we were right and everybody else was wrong. I really don't know which channel is doing that. I don't know which channel is saying I was right and everybody else is wrong. We were wrong. We thought it was an abduction for a while. We also thought that the party was at the sanctuary. But I would say that earlier than most, we changed our view to the accident theory. I would say that. I would definitely say that. Okay, so what we're going to play next? Do you want to play the next video, Terry?
Yeah, I can try to. I see the button for that. I think I looked at, I had a mission statement on this, on every trip, like what I hope to accomplish, and obviously it changed each time. But this last one, I really wanted to take a good look at the terrain. Just, it was different since getting the fire cam footage. I really wanted to see that stretch from the backside of the sanctuary. In one of my videos, I showed there is actually a back trail that goes on the backside of the sanctuary and connects down
it's not
around.
From that video, is it?
Nope, it's a longer one. You probably don't want to play that one. It's 6 minutes 31 seconds. But I didn't really know that it really does connect. It's just an RV trail, but
it's not that one either.
No, that one, that's 220. It should be the one right before that, number 3.
Number 3.
Is that 6 minutes 31?
No, it's labeled number 3, but it's not. Here's another number 3. Is it? It's not that one.
No, it's the one that's 631.
Okay, bear with me.
That one, right?
Yep.
done this portion of the road coming up here. So straight ahead leading to that yellow tree is the lower road. And it's actually not that bad of a road. It's actually not that bad of a road. I'm not going to take that way though. I'm going to take the way that go back up the wrong turn that Kiely did. Hopefully this won't be too long of a video, but I'm not going to go 20 miles an hour on these roads. It's such a pretty day out.
It does look like it was a beautiful day. The sun
So-
just seems so pure and
That's the sign that I forgot to put my seatbelt on, which I will. And I'm driving
so
with
now
my
we're
windows
looking
down.
in the direction of the sanctuary, right?
Okay, this
Yes.
Right over there.
So
Sanctuary straight ahead.
if Kiely hadn't turned left, she would have gone this way.
So this is the route the party goes
There'll
to.
be another Y that goes down to that island that has the wind chimes on it.
And you can see here the road starts dropping
So-
quite steeply, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a
does.
turn off there.
Try to give you a view of that. Okay. I mean, look at the size of that rut, you guys. You have to stay to the right, but there's definitely some parking and such down there, but you got to be careful. So, I mean, it's really, you can't really tell the depth, unfortunately. So I'm going to wind around, and what this does is there's eventually a trail. Look at all the cotton. Cotton plants. So there is another little road that goes back to that wind chime island there. I'm going to stay this way because I feel a second party spot may have been down this way. See how the road looks when I get down here. Yeah, so I don't know exactly how high the water was up here, but
So to come back to that sort of point about, let's bring you back into this as well. Terry, to come back to that point about, I thought she was familiar with the spot, you know. There are so many little roads. It's not like in an urban area where there's one road and you turn off one time and it's there. It's like there are lots of little branches and there are no road signs anywhere. And you can kind of decide, and it sort of all looks the same. It's sort of dirt and trees and dirt going up and down. And but the point is that there are lots of little roads, and as soon as you take one little road, then the other little roads that go off from there. And some roads are actual roads, and others are sort of they've sort of been created. Bear in mind the water level is fluctuating. But some of the roads are sort of, you can use it when the water level is a certain level, but other times not, right? You often have that with dirt roads. It's like you don't really want to take that road because the road's really rough. Then you take another road. But the point is, it's really not one route through there. And of course, if you take one wrong turn, that can lead to another, and that does look like that is what happened, right? Shall we
I mean, this specifically says, I didn't show that sign. Sorry, Nick loves signs. That basically says only off-road vehicles. Some people had talked about crossing this area. I think the water level was quite a bit higher, but that goes to a neighborhood back over there. You can see some people have been taking motorbikes and such through there. The sanctuary is going to be off to the right up here. Okay, here's the signs that pretty much tell you that it's.
Oh, there you
Red
go. You
light
got a
B.
sign.
Just for you.
Road
Well done.
vehicles, but this is pretty smooth right here.
What were you looking
feel
for
like
here?
this was
The
just like a
like a
trickle of
back
water
entrance
down here.
to the
Okay,
sanctuary?
So I'm not gonna go
Yes.
that way because the marker is in the middle of the road. That's I'm not gonna take it any further than that. I'll go ahead and park and get out. This is getting to be 5 minutes. It's a little bit long. Go ahead and shut it off so you don't have to listen to the engine sound. So that's the wind chime island. I would say vehicles probably wouldn't have parked down there just because it'd be pretty muddy. But there's definitely room for cars to park pretty much all over here. And here's the direction that I came from. So right about,
Nick, if you pause it right there,
I'm going to say where that,
Yeah.
right on the very, very right of the screen there at those trees, there's a trail that comes down. It goes straight up to the sanctuary, straight up to the party area from there.
Okay.
And it's only for ATVs, but it's not very long. It is steep, but I could definitely see that people would be parked down below and walk up and down to the party from there. Because this route is easier than the other route driving straight up to the sanctuary, like as far as wear and tear on vehicles. So I could see that people would be parked down here and just walk up to the party from there. That was the main thing I was wanting to see there.
Or if they knew that there was an after party or a second party at this Chimes Hill Island, then some vehicles may have gone, like that sort of long route, and other people may have just walked there. You could also have had a situation like that. Or if someone's got a really super duper 4x4, they could have maybe taken the short route, but maybe those other vehicles were going that route to join vehicles that were already there, right?
Right.
Can I carry on playing, or should we go do something else?
Yeah, that's probably the best part of that. I think you already played the one where after I had turned around and headed back to the island. So then, or the wind chime, I call it wind chime island, but there is another one. It's the other longer one. It would be 5 minutes, 12 seconds. And this was one of my main goals for going, was just wanting to see what the vehicles driving back in that fire cam, what their visibility would be. Obviously it was dark and I was there in the daytime, but just as far as the vegetation and how it slopes,
let me orient
and talking to the camp host, he even said, I don't get how nobody saw her go in. So like, that was my point. Like, I want to see what they could see from that road. So that's what I'm just walking. I parked down at the Peninsula, and then I went back up onto that upper road heading back toward the island, and I just wanted to walk it.
So is this point here the wrong turn, the last wrong turn?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep.
So just for those who don't know, this is the upper road that takes you to you call it the wind chime hill, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this takes you that way. That's where we saw those vehicles curving. And Kiely was here a few seconds later wasn't quite sure where to go, and then she turned in front of this tree. We're going to look at that in a second. Again, I want to go back to that. I hope I can still find it. I want to go back to that graphic. She's basically somewhere here, and everything is dark, and she's wondering where to go. And possibly this light or that light made her think, oh, I think it's that way. But anyway, we are now somewhere. I think this light here is from a vehicle that was leaving. Do you agree with that? That this light here was from a vehicle leaving the camp?
Yes, the paved road.
Yeah. Okay. That's a little bit in from where Kiely drove. I think where she turned off. Would it have been somewhere over here?
About exactly where you are, right there. You can
Okay.
see the vegetation clears off there. It gets lighter colored.
Okay. Okay, so let's play this. Good job, Terry. You've got some really great footage.
Heading back toward the
Thank you.
peninsula. I am parked at the end of the peninsula. Can't even see it. Maybe that might be my truck. Now I'm standing. I know people would be driving, but I'm 5'3" and I have my camera at mouth level. So it'd be a little bit lower if you're in a car. I'll leave it where it's at just because some people were probably in trucks and some people were probably in cars, but I stand in the middle of the road. Can't see nothing over there. I've been wondering what that looked like from this direction. I mean, the scrub brush is tall.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I've heard people say, like, oh, she could have just not even taken the road and just drove across the land, because on the map it looks it looks like you could drive there, but you can't drive. I mean, these things are huge. They're higher than waist level. So the cars that we saw in the video that were coming from this upper road, well, Kiely had already taken her left coming up here, or right to us right now.
So another reason, quite kind of, I think a simple reason why you would stop there, and tell me if I'm wrong, is just before this point, you are about to walk over it. In other words, if you carry on, not straight down this road, but if you carry on straight down the road that she came down, there's kind of an irregular area there, and it slows you down, right? Is that right? So because of the rough road, she would have slowed down anyway, and then she slowed down and then just stopped. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to make a choice there for sure. It's not like one way sweep is more sweeping than the other. It's you need to make a decision.
I also think if you're there at night and your vehicle lights are shining over the road, those deepish depressions are gonna you're gonna see shadows. You're gonna be a little bit like, whoa, what's going on here? You know?
Yeah.
It's going to almost exaggerate the relief of the road. One can imagine anyway. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, my truck is there, so you can't see it yet. I thought that was interesting.
That's also quite amazing. Is in this image you can't actually see your truck parked on the isthmus on that peninsula, although it's there. That is not your truck. That's on the other side of the lake. But even from this perspective, even though it's so open, from here you can't even see it. That's definitely something that I learned. I mean, it seems quite level when you look at maps and when you look at photos, but you realize it is very up and down.
My truck is down there, but you can't see it. That's not my truck. That's somebody across the water. Right, there's the
One Peninsula goes down. My truck should be straight ahead right now. And I can't see it. There's the road she took. I'll keep going just so you can see what it looks like. It dips down here, so there should be
There's your truck. You can just see
some
it there.
visibility.
There it is.
Not till when you get here. There's my truck. Not till when you get here. And here in the road is when it starts to turn and you go back.
But there's a good example of there's a deep gouge in the road, and you can kind of see why at that point you might slow down, and then you face with this wire, and you could almost imagine if she didn't slow down and she just drove in a kind of a fog, that she would have gone straight. Wouldn't it be more intuitive just to have gone straight? It's more of a turn to go off to the left, isn't it?
It definitely is more of a turn to go left. I'm just figuring she realized then, the vehicles that were in front of her were going further into the party and she wanted to leave. I mean, she knew that was the wrong way.
Well, I think she could also have seen that light on the other side and made a bit of a foggy decision with regard to that. We are going to talk a little bit about the autopsy in a little bit of detail, but to me, what I think is a bit strange, I don't know what you think, Terry. For me, what's a little bit strange is it's now, she wasn't intoxicated at all. That seems to be what people are saying. That's the conclusion we draw from the autopsy, is that she wasn't intoxicated at all. I don't know if you can say that. I don't think you can say that she wasn't, and I don't think you can say if she was, how much she was. It's just unclear. To be honest, I thought they would have much better, more detailed toxicology, but what the toxicology does show is the alcohol is slightly above the level that they would have anticipated, but then they didn't use the vitreous humor, which surprised me, which to me is not going to give you a very accurate reading. But nevertheless, the alcohol seemed, based on the toxicology, higher than what they said. The other thing, and we dealt with this in the Fuentes case, is it does look like there's a combination of drugs and alcohol. And not all drugs stay in the system for like 2 weeks. Like fentanyl will go out within hours. Somebody also said someone said something like, there's a cover-up because she wasn't tested for cocaine, and you actually see the cocaine test in the autopsy if you've read the entire thing. They did a full drug thing, but I guess there's always going to be one drug that I suppose could be used, like morphine. Could someone have used morphine? But they did test for cocaine, we talked about this in the stats dealing with the Yulisa Fuentes cases. What is quite significant these days isn't alcohol in statistically dealing with driving under the influence. These days, it's far more driving under the influence of drugs than alcohol. And we know for a fact that, and also you have the influence of drugs and alcohol together, which also have a compounding influence. So we know that she was using marijuana and drinking. We also know that there were cans of, what is that drink? Hard seltzer or something?
Truly.
Oh, Truly. Sorry, I'm thinking about the Chris Watts case. Where else was there seltzer? Wasn't there seltzer?
That was Summer with the Twisted Tea.
Was that a seltzer? Is that a seltzer?
It's similar. Twisted Tea. It's more like an iced tea, like a sparkling iced tea.
Yeah. So the Truly, we saw the actual cans, and then what's the other thing? There's nicotine there now. You could either associate nicotine with marijuana, smoking whatever, or maybe she was vaping. Vaping could have also been part of the thing, and that's definitely a big thing these days with teenagers. It's very, very popular. You see it all the time. That could definitely. One of the reasons I think teenagers vape is it sort of creates a water cooler effect. Everyone must sort of gather together. You know what I mean? Take a what's the word? Take a, not a sip, take a suck, I guess. Take a pull, take a drag. I don't really know the lingo.
You say hit. It's hit.
Take a hit. Yeah. No, but I mean, if you're vaping, is that also a hit?
Yeah, it's still a hit.
Sorry, Terry, your knowledge is much better than mine in that area.
I'd rather have knowledge in the areas that you do. We'll put it that way. But
yeah, so no, you're right. It is take a hit. But I'm just saying with vaping, the whole point of vaping is that you sort of I'm not quite sure how the bubbles work, but you all kind of gather around in a small area, and it makes for like a intimate little gathering. People who don't know one another are at close quarters, and you can have your little conversation and so on. I'm just saying that could have been a factor as well. But I think it's once again jumping to a conclusion that because the autopsy and the toxicology is not terribly specific in that area, now it means she was definitely not intoxicated or definitely intoxicated. It's kind of uncertain. It looks like she was smoking marijuana, and it looks like she the alcohol does seem slightly above the right level, but to me, I'm a little bit disappointed that the alcohol is not more accurate. Maybe it is, but I don't know if looking at the liver, you're going to get an accurate count. From the research I've done, you're not going to get that from the liver. You're going to get it from the vitreous humor, from the bladder. But they may have done their calculations, and who knows, maybe it is accurate. It does show that the alcohol is slightly above normal. It should be 80 and it's 88. I wish I could speak more scientifically about that, but a friend of mine who studied that is no longer with us. So that's the situation. Shall we go back to your video, or do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think a lot of the people who have been leaning more toward foul play, with that relatively lower alcohol content, I think they thought that was the whole crutch of the accident theory was, well, she must have been wasted. I mean, you'd have to be wasted to drive into the water right there. And, that was one piece of it, that we would think could, cause her to not be as sharp as she would be. But there's so many other factors with the terrain at night, tired. I mean, a lot of different things. But I think that's making, the people that lean more toward foul play are just like, well, what do you have to stand on now? She wasn't even that drunk. So
definitely. Marcia Anderson, welcome. Casey says, waiting on the pathology final report. I don't think there is going to be a pathology final report. There may be a California Highway Patrol report dealing with the telemetry. I would be hopeful to see that, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I wouldn't hold my breath that there's going to be much more. I don't think that that's correct. Sorry to be so blunt about it. Well, I will come back to that. I'll tell you why I say that. I'll tell you why I say that. Anyway, we will talk about that a little bit later. Terry, to me, one of the things that stands out in this case, and I think it's the reason certain cases become high profile and others don't, is on the face of it, something that has taken place seems to be quite simple. And then it turns out there's quite a lot of subtlety. But there's still a kind of a sense that what has happened is quite simple. But you've got this strange mixture of something that was fairly, or seems fairly straightforward, but then you can also interpret a lot of those subtleties both ways. So in other words, you decide whatever you want the subtlety to mean. You decide what happened, because there's enough subtlety to do that. But there's a difference between someone who decides the subtlety means it's an alien invasion and abductors are running around. You just can't see them. They're invisible alien abductors. And someone who says, well, anchored in the evidence, and also this is the most logical thing, which is what I guess law enforcement will also say. I think law enforcement will gravitate to the most obvious thing given the circumstances. It doesn't mean they're right. It just means that they are trying to be as rational as possible, right? Because often prosecutors will take their case and prosecute it based on facts and evidence, right? But yeah, in this case, it's a question of, was the simplest and most obvious explanation the explanation, or was it some elaborate ... And I think a lot of people will say, yeah, but it wasn't obvious. I thought after a certain point, I'm not saying it was obvious from the first day. I think a lot of us thought that it was possible from the first day that it could just be an accident. That's why the accident narrative has been with us all along. I don't understand why there's this revulsion and aversion. Like even AWP in their video have the word accident. They say murder or accident ? So the accident narrative has been with us all along. And yet there's been this resistance to even talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. How dare you think about it? Well, we thought a lot about the foul play narrative. Maybe it's time to think about the other narrative, and so I try to do that by discussing Elisa Lam and that lady who went into the water. And I've actually been preparing Kanika Jenkins as well. She was another case where people insisted it was foul play. And just to see, and that's a very interesting case where she was walking around intoxicated for an hour and nobody helped her. And people also said the same thing. Why didn't anybody help her? Sometimes you see someone who's drunk walking around and you think that they're almost at their home, or they almost where they need to be, or you not really sure what to do, or maybe you're not a very nice person. But she was in a hotel and you would have imagined she would have found her way to her hotel room, but she didn't. And then the thing was, the CCTV didn't actually show her going into the refrigerator in that little space where you saw her stumbling around, but you didn't see her actually walk into the refrigerator. They said there's foul play. She had to have been murdered. So what would the motive have been? There was no sexual anything in that case either. She wasn't robbed. So what would the motive have been there? But because you had that little gap, it felt like something must have happened. This couldn't have just been an accident. Well, it could have, but it just feels like, wow, how could that have happened? And then you actually have other cases as well. Elvis, was it an accident or was there some grand conspiracy? Lady Diana, was it an accident or is there a big kind of plot around her? Marilyn Monroe, was it that could also have been an accident or something else? Or was it, the same thing all over again? And because these people become quite important to us, you say, I can't diminish who they were by just thinking that it was an accident. It's got to be bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said the same thing about, I was nearly killed last Sunday. And people probably would have said, I don't believe that was just an accident. I think, the day that it happened, ... We tend to, we're meaningful creatures, and we want to make things often more meaningful than they actually are. Anyway, you carry on, Terry.
No, I agree with you. There's it's this call for justice. It's like there's this whole big global justice league now. There's this cry for justice, and I don't know. I think people are well intentioned. They're just
Well, we have checkered TV in the house. Did you see checkered TV when you were there? You were there like 4 times. Did you see them there?
Yeah, no, I did not see him, but we both got called out on some obscure channel because our routes on the Cal Topo map both had our names right next to each other.
Oh, right, yeah.
So
yeah.
somebody
I remember
found
that.
his name, and then because I was in the same area the same day that Juan was, that apparently we were in cahoots and we probably like were planting evidence or something. So
No, but you must remember in the foul play thing, they had to create a long list to take them through from August 22 till potentially November 1st. So they had to go through, did Jagger do it? Did her mother do it? Did Mags do it? Did Jane Doe number 1? Did Jane Doe number 2? Did you do it? Did you know? So they had to go through like this long list, and every time, oh, maybe it could be that person or whatever. But then now they sort of run out of time. You know, now it's well, there's the official report.
yeah.
I think the story potentially now is, you could say, you could make it about the horrible creators that are know-it-alls, and that whatever. You could make that you could continue the conversation like that. You know, to me if you want to have that conversation and say, Jeepers, you're such an arrogant person, you think you know everything, you think you're better than everyone else. In this case, someone came along and they said, it's definitely, I've decided that it's not 50-50, it's 90% foul play, and it's really suspicious, and we're really going to back this guy who's really credible, and so on and so on. That was kind of, and also, if you criticize us, we'll bring the world down, and that kind of sounds like we write and you know what I mean. So for other channels, and I really don't know who those other channels are. There were about 25 channels covering this case. About 22 of them were all foul play channels, and 3 of them were basically not profiling evil, Grey Use Investigates, and this channel, and they didn't really cover it very much. It was like, there's nothing really to see here, move on. I kind of thought, I kind of found the the thinking process quite interesting. Not so much the investigation. I thought that the thinking process of everyone, I thought that is actually worthy of study and concern. You know, what is going on and what can happen, you know? Okay, we're going to go back to your video and let's see what we see.
So you'd have to be looking behind you in your rear view mirror to see. So this is the road that goes back up to the sanctuary. The sanctuary road's right about there where that big beautiful tree is. But like I said, it curves here. You'd have to be looking in your rear view mirror to look back and see her at that. There's my truck right there. So you only have,
so there you've got quite a good view. Let me back it up slightly.
at that. There's my truck right there. So
there you have quite a good view of, on your approach to this Y junction, it's rough road, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a rough section, and not only that, I think there's like a bump over here and a bump over there. Is that right? Like, no matter if you turn left or right, the road bumps quite significantly. So you kind of have to slow down. And what Kiely did was she stopped here.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah, there's no indicator of what would be a main road from there, or main route. I mean, they basically look equal with a tree in the middle.
But can you confirm that? So on the approach to this point, she probably stopped here. On the approach to this point, it's quite rough, and then just beyond the point where she stopped, there is a there's a bump there and there's a bump there, or not really.
Yeah, no, that's correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
So let's have a look. Let's have a look.
You only have, let's see, from where I can start to see it.
I was just surprised how little my truck looks from the road too.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay, it's gone. So there it is. 3, 6, 9, 14, 18, 20, 50, 60. Approximately 60 feet only where you could see that vehicle before, even less than that because I was already turning. I'd say between 50 and 60 feet where a vehicle would be visible on that point. And that's it. Now, I didn't test it coming from the other direction. It's probably a little bit longer once you hit this turn right there up until where I'm standing. So you've got maybe a couple 100 feet where you could see the vehicle from there. So it's not like you have this whole long stretch of road where everyone could have clearly seen.
So I must say, when you look at that perspective, you kind of got to wonder, where was that light that's in the middle of here somewhere? Is there a campground here? I see there is a road going up there. Surely there's a light somewhere here. That's the light that she saw, right?
Yeah, the one where you said you can see a road, that is another, I guess you'd call it an undeveloped boat ramp. But then further to the, yeah, it'd be further to the right. Yeah, where you have your cursor now, if you went straight to the water there, that would be that road that you just said is an undeveloped boat ramp. So it'd be from where my truck is, where that light would be probably about 1 or 2 o'clock from there.
There were headlights out there.
Yeah, there you actually mentioned it, that there were headlights out there. So I want to deal with a video where you actually measure the distance with your shoes, with your feet. Can you remember what the number of that video?
Oh, give me just a second to look.
Okay, while you're looking, I'm going to play this one. Where's
Perfect.
this? This is on the
Oh,
Chime
yeah.
Hill, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this was kind of, I just wanted to take like 1 minute of silence for her. So I just walked up there, and if you turn the volume up and have me stop talking, you can hear the wind chime.
Oh, yeah, you can. Now I understand. There it is. Well, that was unexpected. That was really touching. I wonder who put that there. Your volume, you're muted.
I was gonna have you do that one for the final, like the last little bit. Yeah, I saw on another channel, someone went out there and saw that too, and it was, oh, the wind chimes are so creepy, and it's like,
creepy.
I'm sure it's put by some cult out there, and I don't know. It's all on how you look at things, you know.
Yeah,
all of these stories, it's what your opinions on it are a reflection of you and what you've been through in your life, and what do you hope to gain and the difference you hope to make. And so what one person thinks is evil, to me, that was her song is still carrying on. So it's really,
Yeah, I mean,
really how you look at it.
Virtually everyone here, I mean, I felt the same. Just what an unexpected, beautiful moment. What a soft, sweet, unexpected moment. Renee says you're a jewel.
Oh, thank you. Well, the wind just happened to pick up right then when I went out there too. It was really, really interesting. Right at my approach up to that tree, all of a sudden the wind picked up. Like the wind chimes wanted me to hear them. I wouldn't have known that they were there if the wind hadn't been blowing. So there's one there's the one that's 4 minutes 28 where I paced it out from like her memorial and actually did like foot end to end and tried to get a side angle because I'll just say, I mean, I've been there four different occasions, and I mean, I really think in September her vehicle would have been exposed.
Yeah.
But as of
Okay,
Monday,
so I don't know if how long is the video?
it's 4 minutes 28. And there's another one just before it, 3 minutes 45, but I don't think that one showed it quite as good.
I don't think I have it.
I would have sent it to you on Monday. I haven't sent it to you since then.
I saw it on my other computer. Well, is there a way that we can watch it? Can you screen share?
I didn't send it to my email either. It's only on my phone. But if you give me time, like if we go to something else, I could come back to that.
Okay. Okay. So
I do think
yeah.
I do think it is important to see how much that's gone down. Just that when you're at the top,
Yeah, totally.
You can't see the slope. And I actually paced it out from where her memorial is, and I mean, I think I had it estimated to be about 60 feet. And if you stand far enough back, you can try to kind of gauge the depth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty telling. I think that's an important point to make.
Is there a way you can WhatsApp me that video, and then I'll try and email it to myself or something like that?
I just sent it to you right now, and it just went through.
On WhatsApp?
Yeah. Oh, it says preparing, so it's on its way.
Okay. So anyway, let's have a look at some of these stunning photos, especially that you took. I think they're over here. So there's Terry on location. Look at these incredible pictures. Did it rain while you were there, or did it rain the day that you left?
No, it didn't get any rain. It stayed in that area. It looks to me like the storms like to hang out in that part over the Sierra Nevadas.
This to me is the most beautiful photo I think I've seen in terms of the Rodni case. Just says it all in one photo, I think. I think that is really a beautiful photo. The light is so sort of fragile in a way as well. Those lines going like that as well. The way the light's touching the scene, in such a soft way, it's just really well done.
Thank you. I'd tell you, it really the scenery did all the work. It'd be pretty hard to be there on a day like that and mess it up. I really felt this time, when I pulled in there, each time it's had a different feel, because obviously when I was there less than a week into it, I was in search mode. I mean, it's all I was thinking about. Get on the CalTopo app and just look for things, anything. I didn't think I was going to come across her vehicle, but I was just looking for anything at that point. And then when I went again for the memorial and was so focused on her family and community, and I just felt really called to go there again Sunday. And then when I saw it was the last day of the campground, I was like, I need to go. The seasons are changing, and just that there was, fall is approaching without Kiely, just a season without Kiely. It's like an endless summer for her. And it made me so sad. And I felt like I needed to be there again for some closure, and to literally have the campground gate closing behind me. I thought it's kind of my last chance to, discover some more clues, help bring some closure for everybody. And when I stepped out onto the edge there overlooking, where the campground is, there's a beautiful overlook where you can see the point where her vehicle went in. And it felt like a fishbowl, like a giant fishbowl that was only like a quarter full. And you just have this beautiful blue sky and clouds around you. And I just envisioned the entire valley there, the whole Truckee area, just this big fishbowl. And I wanted to keep them safe. I do hope that they are in their own little bubble and aren't hearing what's going on, because what's being said about that community is awful. And the things that the people would not say those things if they were there in person. I've said that before after the memorial, but I don't expect people to get it, because it's a very unique place. And I've lived in other mountain towns. I've lived in Jackson Hole, Wyoming for over a decade. I know how those mountain towns are. You have the off season where you get a precious month in the fall and month in the spring where the town is yours. And then the tourists come in for either the ski season or, the summer fun season. And it's really a tight-knit community. I mean, I know people say that about a lot. Nothing ever happens like that in a tight-knit community like this. But the way they've been attacked, people just don't get that. And I don't know who the first person was to start putting a negative thing to this Truckee way, but it just infuriates me. It makes me so upset that a PR campaign from the Chamber of Commerce got twisted into this evil cover-up. It's just such an ugly thing, and I've just never seen anything like it. And I'd like to say it's not going to keep happening, but I just think there needs to be more people out there who are compassionate and can show that these people have feelings. This town has been hurting, and what most of the people are doing isn't helping at all. And
yeah, I mean, it feels like the injury of what's happened here. Let me bring back that image you took. The injury that's happened has been compounded with insult, adding insult to injury, accusing all the people around this, undermining law enforcement, turning a tragedy into a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just hope that it is a fishbowl feeling for them. I hope that it is a bubble around them, and that they're not going to let this, they already have the Donner Party looming over them. That's a horrible, tragic legacy in the history books forever. It's a shadow that's always kind of there. And I just hope that it is a fishbowl and they're protected in there. And, I have no doubt that they will stick up for each other and take care of each other. It's, I have been surprised every time I've been there too, that there hasn't been anybody else there, not one soul in all of my travels up and down. I think maybe the very first time I drove up to the sanctuary, someone went by on a motorbike. But other than that, I mean, you just figure there's this huge global spotlight on this area, yet nobody is actually there looking or reporting or doing anything. It's really easy to sit in your living room and tell everybody what you think you know about a town, but I mean, I've had that place all to myself. Even the campground, there was only 4 other people staying in the whole campground that last night. I mean, it felt all alone. Yet all of these hundreds of thousands of people on these live streams talking about all this stuff, but nobody's actually even there to see or feel or experience it. So that's why I wanted to try to bring some of that to you all. And I thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, and you were saying how the silence, it was so silent you could hear a pine needle drop. It feels like there's been this cacophony of, there was a channel doing like 8-hour live streams 3 times a day or whatever, and you had this cacophony, and despite all of that noise, there wasn't really much. You could argue, you could say, no, we solved the case, but you could also argue that maybe there wasn't all that much substance, and yet you going there and just in the silence, you may have found quite a lot of substance in that. I think just in that moment, which took me by surprise, I'd never seen that footage until now, where you were on that chime hill. I mean, that's why I said, I don't know why do you call it that? And then when you played that, I just had a feeling that I haven't had before, a tender moment where you listen, and you see, and you sort of feel. You're not projecting yourself onto it. You are not in the way. You are actually taken by surprise. You're like, wow, and that, I think you need that. You need that in true crime. You need that sensitive spirit. You need that that curiosity, that tender-hearted curiosity, not a arrogant, showy. You need to get out the way of it. You need to let the evidence reveal itself, and you need to be open to that. Do you agree?
Yeah, that's a great way to put that. Just being silent and absorbing the environment. There's just a lot to take in, and maybe you can, at the very end, you can play the wind chime again when I'm not talking over it, because you can hear the subtlety of the wind and the trees too. And it is so silent there at that campground at night. If it's not windy, which the campground host said most of the time, by the time the sun goes down, any wind just really calms down. But you can literally hear the highway miles away. I mean, it's 3.5 miles driving by road, but even further as the crow flies. I mean, probably about 4 miles away, you can hear little distant semi sounds. The train, which is even further than that, that's more like 4.5 miles away. It's pretty amazing how quiet it is out there. I mean, I heard coyotes and every little critter out there moving. Of course, I'm on alert because it's bear country, but so silent out there. And yet there's all this huge noise of social media, just people typing in all caps and all of these things. Like, it's just so peaceful here. You're just not getting it. Yeah.
I think that also speaks to the Rodni family is they chose to live in a secluded area. I mean, they wanted to be away from exactly that. And there's a cruel irony that Kiely came out of this environment, this very wooded, natural environment. I keep, I don't know if people notice this, but I keep using the trees as a kind of a motif associated with this case. You took some beautiful photos where there was that one day, I think it was when it was a celebration, where there was a fire nearby. And when you took a photo through it just sort of framed, the trees were framing the faded trees in the background, and you could kind of barely make them out. And that to me has been a big metaphor for this case and we talk about it often in true crime, but this was such a emblematic version of that, the not being able to see the woods for the trees. And I think it's not just that, it's not being able to, not wanting to, insisting on seeing the trees and not wanting to see the woods. You know, we deliberately gonna go down that path. By the way, I've got good news. I found your video.
Oh,
I've got it here.
excellent.
Deborah in Australia, thanks very much for that. Do you see what Debbie says?
Thank you, Deborah. I can't see the chat, so I always just I feel safe in this in your community. I wouldn't do this anywhere else.
Okay, so
I'd be shredded.
okay, so here we go. Are you ready?
Yes.
Pulled up AWP's video and took some screenshots I sent to you. I've just been pacing around and trying to line things up, you know, without having a measuring tape or a long pole or anything like that. It's a little hard to tell. But right up there, it's the end of the grassy knoll, and I was able to match up. There's a gentleman that was standing right there in one of the still shots I took. I estimated him to be about 6 feet, and from there measured down to where the water's edge would have been then on the 21st, which is right straight ahead that
Do you want to talk us through this? There's a bit of wind interference.
I guess that is windy, huh? I guess I never listened back at that. Darn. Yeah, well, I was just trying to compare where look at, there's my stick. That's my measuring tool there. But it's showing you can see in the pictures from AWP on the side where when their RV was up on top, and you can see these very defined big dips where certain people were standing. So I held that up and stepped back and compared, and I found the exact spot where her memorial is now, but obviously that was before the memorial. She was just being found. So turn it back, see if it's still windy.
Okay, let's go back a little bit.
Yeah, so I went from that spot, and then I'm measuring.
7, 8, 9,
So
10, 11, 12.
I just wanted to see how, because people have asked me, there's two different things, like how much has the depth receded, and then how much further out is actually the water's edge. So it's two different measurements. So it is hard to tell the depth, but I think I counted this out, I think to what, like 60 or 65 feet?
even more, I think 70 feet. So if Checker TV is watching, I don't know if you can corroborate what Terry's saying. You know, like does that look like it is about 70 feet? Now, bear in mind the vehicle, but that's in a straight line. This is going slightly downward. In a straight line from shore, the vehicle was around about, they said, 55 feet. So if the vehicle was still there now, you would actually see it. It would be not just slightly out the water, it would be completely in the exposed area here, right?
14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51. I'm directly across from where the glass was that I found. 2, 3, 4, 55. Right here on dry land. There's the rock, there's the memorial. If you imagine water going, my stick isn't straight out from there. I wish I could get far enough out. Just knowing how steep that it's really, the video doesn't do it justice. It's definitely steeper. I would feel there, even if I went out another 5 feet, say that I wasn't generous enough. 3, 4, 5, that's 60 feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 65 feet. And we're 70 feet to water. Now there's a bend here, but regardless, I think her vehicle would have been showing the last time I was here a month ago. So I believe it would be on dry land right now. This is kind of a good okay, let's see. Looking at it this way, flip you this way. Let me take my stick across.
Now I'm getting disorientated.
I promise that I wasn't trying to show what it would look like if it started tipping over.
It does look like a beautiful, beautiful day. Was it hot?
No, pleasant. I mean,
Pleasant.
cold at night. I stayed in my tent until it got above 40 because I'm not a cold weather camper like I used to be. It got down to 36 that night. So by then it was probably up in the 70s. I had short sleeves on. Yeah, that's the one I just sent you. That shows the
So
level.
it's actually quite pleasant.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Right. It looks like a perfect day. So can you, like, technology is amazing, hey? Like, you are almost on the other side of the world. You're in California. I think, like, literally the other side of the world to me is Hawaii. So if you went a little bit further, you've just, while we've been here, like, it's you there, I'm here, and you've just emailed me a photo which comes from there. It's come all across the world to here. Now it's back on the screen. Technology is really incredible, isn't it?
It really is.
So
Yeah.
what do you want to talk about here in this?
Yeah,
image?
this was the one where I was comparing the side view of when Adventures with Purpose had their RV at the top. So on this picture, at the top of the mound there where it starts to slope down, right where that tree line in back connects, yep, right there. That's about where the edge of where their RV was parked. There were a couple people standing right there. So about, it's so hard to do on screen, just say like 2 inches down. Her memorial.
Can you see where my cursor is? Isn't that the original level?
Yes.
There. Yeah.
Yep, that's it right there. Because you can tell those big divots. So it's, it's really hard to gauge how many feet of water, but in my mind her vehicle, it would be completely on dry land when I was there. I mean, I was standing on window glass and I was still about 20 feet from the shore, 25 feet. So I really feel it would have been visible all the way back in September. Obviously, we're glad that she was found sooner. It's just, you hear over and over that.
If you, someone who is religious about the foul play theory, that all the evidence does show that, then I think you need to explain. So if you do this, you try and hide a vehicle in a reservoir and it basically reveals itself, what would that be all about? Like, so then I guess you've got to say, well, it's not a local. A local didn't do that. So then who is your suspect if it's not Jagger? So you've got to take all the locals out of that picture, because all the locals would know this happens every year because they're familiar with the area, right? So you've got to take all those locals out the picture. So I just want to say, if you are still pursuing the foul play theory, you're going to need to do that. Take all the locals out the picture because they would know that this would happen. And I don't know, do you have any, someone did say, have they, I guess, identified all the party goers? At last count, I think someone said there were 400, so it's 300 or 400. But someone who chose this site, not only is the height above the lake and the profile in terms of the lake, you can see it for miles. If you are somewhere around there, you can see it for miles and miles around. And and you know, like if saying that isn't good enough, well, the fire cam demonstrated that. You had 2 fire cams that could clearly see. So you would imagine if you wanted to make this not be seen, don't do it from the most prominent spot next to the lake, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm sending you a picture right now too of the view from the opposite side that really makes your point too. Thankfully, someone actually parked out there right at
Yeah,
the
I see.
time to show because when it's bare, it's really hard to see. But thankfully, someone parked right over there. But you know, I do think, you know, being there on for her memorial in September, I mean, the wheels would have been showing by then, and a month later, completely exposed. So, I'm very glad that she was found sooner. But the people that say that it would be a cold case forever, that's not true.
So there it is, another photo that has been traveling around the world, and went onto my phone, then onto my phone into email. Just like at the touch, it's like magic, blah, blah, you know.
It is that, and then I'm watching it on a screen. I took it from my screen to your screen. I'm watching it on a screen around the world. It came
Yeah,
full
no,
circle to me.
as well. So this is on the other side of the lake, looking at the false isthmus, right?
Yes.
There's the memorial. I must say, even I'm disoriented. I look at this and I'm like, is that, I mean, that's the giveaway, that road going there to that tree, that's the giveaway.
Yeah.
But this all looks so nondescript, it's difficult to keep track of what you're looking at.
It doesn't look very pointy there, does it?
No.
But
And also
you
it
know,
doesn't look as though, it doesn't look nearly as shallow as it does when you were there measuring it out. I mean, that looks quite deep over there.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you lose some of that point because the water to the right there has dried up. That water used to wind back so that would stick out more. So it's really not even a peninsula anymore now.
Yeah. Now it's a beach.
Yep. Hard packed beach.
Okay. Let's have a look at some of the comments. Are there any other yeah, a voice probe, that's really true. It's deceiving because it's man-made. It's unnatural. You don't normally get these kind of steep slopes with natural lakes. You know, don't really have that kind of situation.
Yeah. I think Check It TV wrote something the vehicle would have been exposed on September 22nd.
Oh, that's interesting.
So he's confirming that. Can't really keep an eye on chat, but I did see that one pop up.
So we did a previous live where you actually were walking around and you actually picked up a piece of glass out of the dirt that was way from the water's edge. I also thought that was quite interesting. That also, you've got no idea where that glass dislodged, but it's possible that it dislodged where the vehicle kind of turned over. And yeah, so
I can send that one to you too if you want. It's kind of long, but I think it's another 4-minute one, or 3 minutes 45. I took 2 attempts to try to show that how much it had dropped, but I tried 2 different angles. It's really hard when you're not there. You almost need you need another person with you. That's the problem. I need another scout out there with me so they can stand up above and you can see.
did you oh no, it wasn't you, I think it was someone else. You didn't record Check It TV doing any of his dives?
No, I've never, nobody's ever been out there when I've been out there.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
nobody.
you said so. I think that was Werner. Werner did that. Okay, so we're gonna kind of move into a slightly different area now. I'm gonna pull up this article. It's from the correct my pronunciation. Is it Tahoe or
It's Tahoe? Tahoe.
Okay. Tahoe. Tahoe. How do I skip this? Tahoe Are the hamburgers good in Tahoe?
I did have one at that Burger Me that Kiely, there was a picture of her at that place. It was
Okay.
delicious.
Okay. So something stood out to me in this article, just the following point. What did she say? It says, how she ended up in the water is under investigation by the California Highway Patrol's Major Accident Investigation Team. I think that's right at the end. I think that is there it is, near the end. And so that is a aspect to this case that is still unknown. We don't know the telemetry yet, and we'll see whether that has any impact on anything. We'll also see whether we'll see that. Based on what's already happened, based on the autopsy, I don't know whether they're going to go to a heck of a lot of effort. It's not I don't know if it warrants it, right? We may think it does, but I don't know if they would. You must remember, a case like this has sucked up a heck of a lot of resources. Meanwhile, there have been fires all over California. If you go to the Placer County Sheriff's Office Twitter page and you go to Nevada County, it's just fire alerts, fire alerts, fire alerts. That's really where their concern has been, like literally saving lives in real time. And it's not that Kiely's life doesn't matter, but just that there's other work to also do. Right? Yeah, that's it. I used to love watching Chips as a kid. It was absolutely awesome. Really, really good. That the music for that was really incredible as well. Really well done. Yeah, California Highway Patrol. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to mention. So I suppose you could argue that the case is actually still under investigation in terms of the aspect to determine how she ended up in the water. The how means, I guess, the mechanics of the vehicle in the context of driving at night over the given topography. So we may get a report from CHP at some point as well. We may not. The telemetry, if it's recoverable, may indicate speed. Also, if Kiely turned or braked at the last moment, or indeed if she didn't. One additional aspect we simply don't know is where her phone was found, if it was found, and where it is now. One lesson I think has been learned by Ali from this case, I hope, is to how better to interpret and appreciate ping data in these sorts of sudden disappearances, specifically involving vehicles. And you kind of get the same feeling with the Yulisa Fuentes case, that the best information wasn't the CCTV, wasn't what a witness said, it was, and in this case as well, the best information was actually the ping. That was the best data.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if someone goes missing and and it becomes a high profile case, be explicit about this is where the ping is. That's a great way of addressing it. Of course, you don't know if it is a foul play case, and then maybe you do have to not give away all your information, because you kind of had that in the Adnan Syed case. They said, this is what the data showed. Well, then you can kind of have a situation afterwards where you say, well, actually, I was over there at that time or whatever. And then it becomes, you know what I mean? It can become destructive to your case to reveal your hand. Something that's really interesting, I don't know if you followed what I put on Patreon just a while ago. In the Letitia Stork case, they actually found that they could tell that her vehicle, so she hired a van, she was actually driving her van with Gannon inside in a suitcase, and she was driving with her daughter in that van. Can you believe it? She had a dead body in the van with her daughter in the van, and they drove all the way to Florida from Colorado Springs, I think. And then they actually said that they found that that van stopped where the bridge was, and I'm not sure for how long. I don't know if it was 2 minutes but they actually could see from GPS data that that van specifically stopped in that area. Now the question is, GPS data from her phone or GPS data from the telemetry? I would imagine it's the telemetry, but it's interesting that they were able to pinpoint that very, very accurately to say that vehicle stopped by the bridge where Gannon's remains were found, right? And that is quite a, well, I would call that a smoking gun. We'll see whether it turns out to be a smoking gun. It seems like one person's smoking gun is another person's smoking gun. Terry?
I totally agree.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that. Now I want to deal with the autopsy report. We're not going to go into too much detail. I just want to touch on this. Let me bring that up. Okay. So many thanks to SM Kovalinsky, who actually went to the effort to apply for this report. He went through the appropriate channels, got the full PDF. One aspect I found quite surprising in reviewing the full 18 pages, and that's specifically dealing with the toxicology, right? It's the autopsy, but it's dealing with the toxicology, is that it was really, there you can see toxicology, that it kind of focused only on the liver tissue. There's absolutely no sample taken of the vitreous humor, or even, I'm not sure if the urine is from the bladder, but I would imagine it's there. But these are very important to determine blood alcohol levels, often for drowning victims. It's something we dealt with. Do you remember when we dealt with that in other cases? And so I was just surprised that that is not ticked there. The liver is. And I'm not an expert, but I would say as a result of using liver tissue and not using that or that, you're going to get a ballpark idea. You're not going to get you could have gotten maybe a more accurate idea using that, right? So I think, this is just my opinion, that their lab isn't the most advanced, or they simply felt that the situation didn't justify it, or wasn't serious enough to warrant that level of study. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now I'm going to bring up something else, and I hope this addresses Deborah's point. Deborah, are you still with us? Let me just see if I can find her. Where's Deborah? Deborah, I see you are here. So Deborah, remember what you said about, well, was it even possible to use the vitreous humor? Now you must remember, we looked at 2 other cases where they specifically looked at drowning victims who were in the water for between half a month and a month. And let me do this. Sorry, I don't want to get rid of Terry. Let's just do that again. So yeah, what we saw was, even if you've been in the water for a month, the vitreous humor still is a very good source to check specifically for ethanol, not naturally occurring ethanol, but the ethanol that would have been present when the body first, when the person died, right? Okay, Deborah, I see you here. I don't know if can I call you Debbie? I suppose maybe not. I think your name's Deborah D because it's Deborah D. So if I did offend you there, sorry. So so this brings up another aspect, right? the blood alcohol level isn't likely to be terribly accurate going that route in terms of this, going the liver route. Even so, it was still slightly elevated at 88 rather than 80. That to me suggests that there was not a normal level of alcohol, but an above average level. So that's already saying it's possibly elevated. That's all it's saying. It's not below what you'd expect. It's above what you'd expect. That's the first point. Another thing that for me is quite curious is you might expect to see petechial hemorrhage in a drowning victim. Note the choice of words. You might expect to see that because the cause of death is the same as in manual strangulation, asphyxia. In fact, petechial hemorrhages are possible when someone simply holds their breath. So if I hold my breath right now, or I cough in a very violent way, even if I vomit, it can cause petechial hemorrhages in the eye and the cheeks in certain vessels, right? I'd like to say that with confidence, older people will have more petechial hemorrhages than younger people, but I just think it depends on the kind of skin you have and the kind of blood vessels you have and things like that. So I don't know whether you can make an absolute statement that a young person simply wouldn't have it, but I would tend to think that a young person's skin is tougher in a way and it's more elastic than an older person's skin. It's used to vigorous things taking place. So the next thing to say is, so even if you cry excessively, you can have petechial hemorrhage. You sometimes see when children cry, whatever, you see those capillaries in the eye that become very reddened. I don't know if that's necessarily hemorrhage, but it's the beginning of what we're talking about. Now, it's difficult to say for sure, but it's possible if any of these hemorrhages were present in the face or the eyes. This now addresses Deborah's question, that these may have been destroyed or rendered invisible due to prolonged exposure to water and or zoology. I'm talking about also the face, that if you had petechial hemorrhage in the face, possibly the face almost like paper crumbling, you wouldn't be able to see the outside layer because of the decomposition. That's something that Deborah mentioned. But the ability to use the vitreous humor, that's the fluid inside the eye, could also have been interfered with due to just ordinary decomposition or fish scavenging. But that's not specifically mentioned in the autopsy. If that was present, that would have been mentioned. So you can't make an inference there. The reference to the definition between the corneas and the how do you say that? Conjunctiva. Sorry, it's not a word I often say. They talk about conjunctivitis, so conjunctivae, I guess. The reference to the definition between the corneas and the conjunctivae, along with prior intertextual case studies that we did with drowning victims over similar periods, suggests that the eyes were or ought to have been intact. Here's a reference to that. Conjunctiva, I guess you could say as well. But it looks like there was sufficient decomposition that the face couldn't be positively identified. That's from this section of the autopsy. And you can kind of imagine that, it's not very nice to say, sorry, I thought I was sharing this. That's from the conjunctiva, and that's from the autopsy. You can kind of imagine if the decomposition present in the face meant you couldn't positively identify the face, what Nick Rinn must have seen. How upsetting it must have been for him to see what he saw, don't you think? Yeah. Okay, and then the final thing, it just talks about the facial features distorted by decomposition. And it talks about the chambers of the eyes discolored, but nothing really beyond that. So I don't think that that's the reason, Deborah, that they didn't use the vitreous humor. I don't think that's the reason. I think they could have. The autopsy also makes no mention of Kiely being strapped in any way. There's also no reference to bruising or lividity, which you would expect if she was strapped in. You'd have had a different, you would have had a symptom of that in the pooling, right? You know what I'm talking about, Terry?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
I do. The autopsy is important. It's just I'm somber when I'm hearing
No,
these things.
that does make sense. And then just finally, in terms of intoxication, the numerous references to nicotine and THC suggest Kiely may have smoked not only marijuana but vaped as well. In my day, teenagers got drunk, but these days it seems more the focus is on getting stoned and getting high. But again, you've got to bear in mind, if you're talking about intoxication, it's not just alcohol and it's not just substances, it's probably both. So I don't know if this is quite strange, Terry. I actually thought that the autopsy would cover that, would say, because of the combination of this and this, you would have these potential effects, and that's not there at all. So let's see what Corporal Deb says. That was your old name, your old avatar. Just trying to find it. Okay, so thank you for explaining about the eye. I appreciate you. Thanks a lot. Okay, Debbie, all good. Okay. Now, I just had a cousin called Debbie, so it comes more naturally to say Debbie. Okay, and so Terry, do you want to read part of the Patreon post that I put up? I'm going to email it to you now so you can have it.
I think I've still got it.
Have you got it? Okay. So I'm going to read. I'm going to read 2 paragraphs, and then you can start from often when our thinking manifests. Okay.
Okay.
Can you see where that is?
Yep.
Okay. Right. So what we want to look at in this episode, and what we're still looking at for a little while longer, is how our original assumptions, right? When I say our original assumptions, I'm actually really talking about this channel and those in the true crime rocket science community. I'm not really talking, I'm not really referring at all to the foul play folks. It's really just how we made certain assumptions. And if you want to follow along with this discussion and this thought process, you're welcome. But I'm not really taking it in that direction. I'm trying to just say this was our thought process, and we actually made some assumptions in the beginning that were wrong. And it's quite useful to go back to that and to think about that. So this is it. What were our original assumptions, right? Make a list of them. What were our original assumptions? One of them was that the party site was at the campground. That wasn't right. Have they changed? If they have, does that change anything, or doesn't it change everything? So in true crime, we follow evidence, but in lieu of an absence of evidence, we tend to make assumptions, right? In the Kiely Rodni case, the absence of a vehicle was bizarre and then seemingly inexplicable. What did we do with that? Okay, over to you, Terry.
Often when our thinking manifests in one way or another, we're not sure that it's happening when it's happening. I mean, when our thinking fine-tunes or the needle begins to deviate, we don't necessarily recognize it. But assumptions have consequences. Assumptions also tend to influence other assumption one way or another. Continue. To my shame, I made an assumption basically 10 days into the search for Kiely Rodni. On August 16, day 10, it really seemed pointless to continue searching in the reservoir. What were they going to find on day 11 or 12 that they didn't find on days 1 through 9? Well, if the search had stuck to their guns and searched badly, instead of making assumptions, nature would have provided them a break. But the reservoir was receding. Each day the water level was dropping. Each day the search was becoming easier. Eventually, Kiely's vehicle would be visible below the surface, and if they still didn't notice that, the water level would have eventually gone below the upturned vehicle itself. To my shame, 10 days in, on August 16th, I recommended law enforcement literally scratch the reservoir off the list. In fact, the cover of one of my videos suggested exactly that. And I think it was there that something emblematic on August 16, day 10, no results. The pressure was increasing on the search. There were more questions than answers. Tension was palpable. Also, law enforcement moved further afield in search of sex offenders and abductors. The thinking to quit searching the reservoir was based on two assumptions. One, that if the vehicle went in, it would be close to shore and thus visible or easy to find. Two, that the search of the reservoir's perimeter had been systematic and thorough. I don't think I imagined the search team searching the entire perimeter of the reservoir, but it would be a logical first step, and to their credit, that's how Adventures with Purpose initiated their search. But even if amateur searches had been done step-by-step perimeter sweep, the first assumption would render such a search pointless, that it would be close to shore. I think we all assumed it would be, and it wasn't. Why not? Do you want me to keep going? The Prosser Lake is different to a dam or a natural lake. We know that now, but it was less obvious then. Even from drone footage, it took a while to appreciate just how steep the reservoir edges were to the water. The first time I realized this was on August 19th, 3 days after suggesting law enforcement abandon their search of the lake. August 19th was the day that Terry arrived at the area in person, actually walked down to the water, and took this image of the reservoir edge in profile. Although this steepness was a surprise, it didn't compute with the assumption made earlier. But here's the crucial part. That first assumption made without knowing this important piece of intel. That's what I mean by we don't realize we've made an assumption and how it was a domino effect on subsequent thinking. We tend to never go back and fix the first assumption until reality smacks us in the side of the head. Oh, but I assumed. So the steep angle going into the reservoir ought to have been paid to assumption number 1. It would be close to shore. Assumption 1 needed to be updated to, it wouldn't be that close to shore. In hindsight, I think even in advance, and I believe I did think about this before the discovery, the search ought to have looked in a particular at sites where the road entered the water directly, such as the boat ramp. Maybe they did, and perhaps they assumed, as I did, that the boat ramp was the only way of driving directly into the water. Again. But that was an easy assumption to make if you made another wrong assumption, that the party was at the campground near the boat ramp. If you think about it, the location of the party site, the ping site, and the road connecting the two ought to have been the first assumption, and this, I feel, was a major failure in thinking from law enforcement. Law enforcement really ought to have made it explicitly precisely where the ping was and where the sanctuary was. Because they were so obtuse about this, because they were so focused on getting tips from teenagers, even poor Terry went to the campground assuming that's where the party happened, and looked for evidence in an area nowhere near she should have even been looking. Had law enforcement provided clear graphics from the get-go, like this for the ping site, and this, but clear with a better map and more detailed road for the party site, the search could have been conducted a lot more effectively. Notice also in the above image, the little projection onto what I call the isthmus isn't there. Well, that's helpful. So I wonder if Captain Brown himself knew how simply and obviously the ping site connected to the party site. If he did, if he saw that little road projecting onto the isthmus, as I call it, that would have been an obvious place for them to start. But they didn't start there. Adventures with Purpose didn't start there. Adventures with Purpose only got there after 35 minutes of making their way there from the boat ramp. So obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, the right assumptions ought to have been, number 1, start at the ping site. Number 2, the slope is steep, including underwater, so if the vehicle is in there, it might not be visible from the shore. 3, if you don't find anything there, after searching thoroughly, then do a search of other potential entry points starting from the nearest and then do a perimeter search. The grid search should be 3 meters from shore and then 1 to 2 meter increments from there.
Okay. Let's cut it off there. Okay, so yeah, I actually wrote that I think September 10th. So more than a month and about a week ago. And there've been quite a lot of assumptions since then, but it's really interesting to trace how, the assumption that the vehicle would be close to shore, when you see how steep the reservoir is, that needs to be updated. But it was it, you know what I mean? That was the problem. The other thing is that I think was quite logical, but in hindsight is, did you go and check all the direct vehicle access points, not just the boat ramps, but the areas that the locals would directly access? And I don't know what the answer is to that. I want to bring up that map that you sent me quite a long time ago. I don't know if I'm going to find it very quickly, but I'm going to quickly see if I can. And then I'm going to try and also find that video. I don't know if I'm going to find that, but we'll try and play out with that. Where is that map that you sent? I think I'm getting close. What's that? No, it's not it.
Is it the Runkeeper map?
Yeah, I've got it now. So that is the map.
Oh, that one.
That there's the isthmus, and there's your name, and that was where you were looking. You were looking in that area, thinking that it's near the campground. And
Yep.
Look how many people did search there. Look how many people did search there. All of these lines, all of this searching, basically above this diagonal line was really pointless because the party was here. All of this searching here was really pointless in a way. You could have searched there after you'd searched here, but if you look at this, there was basically one, arguably two people who actually went over the area and they still didn't see anything.
Yeah, the orange line at the bottom, that's check it.
Yeah.
Right there, the one in the water.
Yeah. Okay.
And they have the dates on them too. So I had other ones further on, but yeah, look, I mean, nobody really knew at that point. They weren't very clear.
Christopher Ferrari, he was examining this area, and looks like he was very, very close to it as well. The other thing that is quite interesting is I did find an image. I don't have it with me now, but I did find an image where you see about 4 law enforcement divers swimming from that point over my shoulder towards the false isthmus, the peninsula. they were like abreast of one another. And if they just continued on that line, they would have literally gone over where the vehicle was. And so I would have loved to have just, you see a photo, but I would have loved to have just seen what happened after that photo was taken. Where did they go? Where did they stop? What happened? The other side to that is the vehicle is upside down, and if in your mind you're looking out for a bright silver thing sticking out, then anything that's not the bright, and that's once again an assumption. And that's also an assumption I think we all made, was that you're going to see a bright silver thing, and it's not going to be that hard to see. And the same thing happened in the Yulisa Fuentes case, where I think they thought, yeah, you're going to be able to see a bright silver vehicle. If it went off the road, you'll see a bright silver vehicle. Well, it went off the road and it was under trees and it was on gray rocks. And it was actually very hard to see because of the subtleties of the landscape, right? Is there anything else you want to share with us in terms of thoughts?
I was just going to send you, it's sort of a repeat of the other one with the slope from the other side. I was going to just skip past that, but I think looks like Bria had just commented about, I can't see it now, but it asked something about the vehicle being exposed, like where it would be now. So it's sending to you right now. I could probably send it to her privately, or maybe you could send it to her privately if you don't want to watch it again. But it actually, that's the one that shows me walk up to the patch where the glass was. That it was pretty clear to me that that's where the window had shattered. And that was still 20 feet from the water's edge right now. Like it was complete bare ground. And
okay. Yeah, so another thing just to bring up is humility would have also helped find Kiely, right? Humility.
Yes.
And I've seen so much of the opposite to humility in this case.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I think
you've got to stay in true crime. You've got to stay curious, and to stay curious, you've got to stay humble. Thanks a lot at the scene. Thanks a lot for that. That's what we think. I think people will say calling yourself the most authentic voice in true crime isn't humble. It is if you aspiring to that. Like if you say, I genuinely want, I think that's a goal worth aspiring towards. And it's not easy being authentic either. It's one thing to say, wow, you're really arrogant saying that, but to actually try and be that isn't really very easy. And it is quite humbling. It is quite humbling, that process, trying to be. I don't really feel like I've got to try to be. I think I just am. But there are certain things that do sort of take you off certain paths. Definitely. Okay. Yeah, Christopher was right there, Stargirl. Helena really asked a really interesting question, and I also thought about it. Do you think that search app was really helpful? Because it basically said, I've searched there, you mustn't search there. I've already searched there, don't go and search there.
Yeah, when I first got to the volunteer area, the staging area, and they told me how to download the app and how to use it, they were pretty clear about just because someone has gone over an area, it doesn't mean don't do that area. There's different lighting, different times of day. They could have gone in a different direction. They could have been looking up more and then looking down. So they said, just because there's a path there doesn't mean that that's been thoroughly searched. So
especially when there's water. When there's water, I mean, then it definitely changes the thing. Definitely.
Yeah, they just said to go where you feel safe. I felt better having it, because if something happened to me, they have a record of my every step. I mean, they make sure that you complete it when you're done. If I had gone missing, they would have been, someone would have been able to go right to where I was. So I liked that part of it. I thought it was really helpful. I'd like to, actually, it would be pretty cool to send you a screenshot of that zoomed out a little bit further. I mean, there were hundreds of people searching all over, from Prosser to Boca to Donner and all around her family's place. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you zoom in and see how many people had boots on the ground there.
So I just want to quickly touch on something, this idea that smoking weed can't disorientate you. And it does. In high doses, it can cause disorientation. Bear in mind, it's also not like you are, it's how can I put it? It's like an ordinary situation in the day. This is totally different. Even driving not under the influence at night in a rural area with the road going up and down, is completely dark, is disorientating. So to me, that argument is very moot. To say if she didn't have substances, she wouldn't be disorientated. Even without substances, she would be. And it does seem to me pretty logical that the terrain, the fact that she was a relatively inexperienced driver, she was a 16-year-old driver, and just the obvious fabric of a seniors party and it's late at night, all those things together would compound to create a disorientating thing. And it does look like whoever drove that vehicle got lost, went the wrong way and got lost. So to argue that there was no disorientation, to me, is silly. You could make that argument. I just think it's a silly argument, because there's so many reasons that show that it is disorientating. There are no signs. It was late at night. It was dark, which is probably the biggest one. And you've had not only alcohol, but also something else. And we know for a fact that substances do cause disorientation. And if you make the argument, you say, I don't know why Kiely, the vehicle took about a minute to sink. Why couldn't she get out? Well, same reason. Even with the lights on, she may have been not quite 100%, but we've seen somebody else who is 100% who couldn't get out of the vehicle either. So, you've just got to follow those, instead of just asking the question, like a rhetorical question, like, you're not thinking about this because of, I know this. Try and think about the answer to your question. Try and second guess your own sort of bias in a way, and you might come to a different conclusion. They say that the sign of a first-rate intelligence is holding two opposing thoughts in your mind at the same time. In other words, you have your own thought, but you also think, oh, well, on the other hand, maybe, ... I think good lawyers are able to have their narrative and have their version, but they're also able to imagine counter arguments and then be prepared to counter those counter arguments. In other words, you have the ability to second guess yourself and then examine those arguments and see where they go. And I must say, Terry, I always berated myself for a really long time. In the Bible it says, if you, how does it go? Someone who is lukewarm or something like that. Someone who's lukewarm will not see the kingdom of heaven. Remember that? Do you know about that?
No, that one doesn't sound familiar to me.
But anyway, it basically means you must have a single mind. You must believe like a child. You must have a strong single-minded attitude to the things you know. You must be absolutely 100% in your faith. And for a long time, I sort of thought, well, I seem to be hardwired not to think that way, because I always think this, but on the other hand, that, but on the other hand, this. And I always saw it as like a defect. But in true crime, it's really valuable to think that way, to say, you know what, this seems really likely, but on the other hand, that. So in other words, you're able to build different scenarios. And I think you are in a difficult situation if you, and it may be a weak situation if you always stick to just one single scenario, because there may be another scenario, and if there is, you'll never find it, because you can never deviate. I naturally deviate from scenarios. I think, well, it could be that, could be that, could be that. And even if you naturally do that, you can still do it a lot more. I mean, in terms of this scenario, when I saw how steep that slope was, I didn't think, wow, they should actually be looking deeper into the lake. That should have been the next assumption. But you've already made your mind up that, well, no, the vehicle will be right there, right?
So the lukewarm is kind of like wishy-washy then.
Yeah, or it's a kind of a double-minded thinking. It's not single-minded. You mustn't be double-minded. You must be single-minded. You must be convinced in everything that you believe, you know. You must believe like a child. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Mel Stiller says it's not a familiar quote. I wonder if I shouldn't find it so I can just show you. It's funny, like no one seems to have heard of that. Let's see if I can bring it up.
Good. I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
Well, okay, it comes from Matthew 18, for those who are interested. Jesus tells us, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Having faith like a child requires putting aside our will. This way, our opinions and misconceptions do not get in the way of trusting Christ wholeheartedly. That's sort of part of it. I'm just trying to find another one. I'm not sure why I'm going down this rabbit hole. I really don't. I'm not sure how this is happening, but I might as well just.
We'll stick our paw down there with you, okay? We'll yank you back up by the tail if you get too far.
Okay, well, I'll just quickly touch on this. It's from this website. The Bible talks about single-mindedness, right? Why is this doing this? I don't want to do that. Why can't I see this? Explore this verse. No, that's not what I want. I don't know why this is in the way. Anyway, it's from the Bible that they say that about. Let me go back to the original. I think it's over here. Jesus urges single-mindedness. The teaching involves simplicity of intention, blah, blah, blah. What does the Bible say about not being double-minded? The double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So can you see it is, there is some foundation to what I'm talking about. Do you follow? I'm just saying that from the Bible kind of made me feel bad about thinking about things in different ways. And I felt like, no, you must always think in, I don't want to say tunnel vision, but in a singular way. And I felt, well, I naturally think in a sort of double-minded way. I must be a terrible sinner. But I found when I did true crime that it was actually like a gift, like a benefit to being a better investigator. Because you can also think about the mind of the criminal having that sort of duplicitous double mind, you know? No comment.
No, that's an excellent point. I had jotted down what you wrote about holding two opposing thoughts in your mind at the same time. I think that's something I can test myself on.
In a way, this case was born as, is it an abduction or is it an accident? This case was born with that. It was born with the, is this foul play or is there an innocent explanation? And some people just stuck to one thing. and now some of them are still sticking to one thing. And I'm just saying, to be able to think flexibly is important in true crime, but equally, you've also got to stop at a certain point. There's a point where you need to stop going down a rabbit hole where there's no reason to be doing that. You know?
Yeah, you've mentioned that before too, about, keeping as many things on the table as long as you can, but when they're expired, I mean, let them go. And I've always thought of that, like you can invite these theories into your mind and, have them come onto the stage, but the way I always put it is don't invite them to stay for tea then, let the thoughts go in and out, but you don't need to invite them for tea.
Yeah, I think almost in line with what you're saying, someone will say, it is important to ask questions in true crime, and it is. But to say asking questions and speculating on, is that person guilty of murdering someone, that's totally different. You can ask questions about the lie of the land and certain factual-based questions, but you say, could you have murdered this person? Could you have murdered this person? That's totally different. That's jumping out of nowhere and like, wow, could this have happened? And it goes into the speculativeness and the sensationalness of true crime, and that's not anchored in anything. You know what I mean? That's also not being curious. That is being a bit of a mischievous opportunist. Follow things and ask questions, but speculating, and that was very harmful in this case. We actually had teenagers being basically indirectly accused of murder, and then also some of them directly. You got comments certainly on my channel where people said that person is a murderer, and that's actually defamatory. You make a comment like that, you need to defend that in court, and that's a far more damaging accusation than what we saw in Depp versus Heard, where you say something. That's not slapping someone, that's murdering someone. You're accusing someone of being a murderer, and they're a young teenager. So if you cared about the Depp versus Heard case and that how you cannot say a thing like that, so important, well, what about accusing someone of being a murderer who's a teenager without evidence? That's defamatory as well. And what I thought was quite interesting was there was a point where it entered the media narrative entered, I guess, the social media narrative that one of the teenagers had lawyered up. Do you remember that? That her parents, yes. I think the one was an investigator, maybe the other one was a lawyer, and that she'd lawyered up. And then there was one channel, I remember, that just stopped covering the Kiely Rodni case. When that came out, the coverage just stopped. And if you went back in time and you looked at what that channel was saying about that particular teenager, you could kind of understand why you would not want to cover it anymore, because you could be in a lot of trouble. Right? And that's something you might want to apologize for, is saying that sort of thing, given where we are right now,
Absolutely.
Bria says people are so irresponsible. That's the word that I would associate with this case. Is there was a lot of reckless speculation, a lot of irresponsible speculation. And I actually confronted someone and I said, are you going to take responsibility for it? And I got no response to that. So if you're talking about being responsible, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, callous was the word I was thinking of. I just, how can such callousness come from what seems to be an intention of care? I like to think that everyone just really cares, but it's hard for me to picture how that caring turns callous.
Someone says, can we say OJ is a murderer? If you tweet OJ that, you might want to watch what happens. Because OJ well, I don't know, you can try it. You can try doing that and see what happens. He's been found innocent in a court of law. So according to the law, certainly in a criminal case, he was found not guilty. Of course, if he took you to court, it would be a matter of proving that he's innocent, which that's a different question. But anyway, we're not yet to talk about the O.J. Simpson case. But I've got to say, Terry, what touched me about your investigation was you just gave it such a soft, sensitive aspect to it. There's been such a hard, loud, nasty aspect to this case, and you went there into this beautiful natural environment, and it touched me so much that I went to a travel agent and I was going to fly to California. I was like, I want to be there. No, and then they said it'll take 6 to 8 months for you to get your visa. But I've been so moved by the landscape, and just in the way that you brought it to life. I mean, you take video of trees and dust and water, and it just does look so beautiful. Bear in mind, we've just come out of winter, so it does look it's the end of summer, and it does really look like a healthy landscape that you want to kind of walk through. But all I'm trying to say is that nature and those soft touches was what I thought this case really needed, is to listen to the wind whispering through the trees. Look at the water of the reservoir, look at ripples, and is there any subtlety in that? Is there something you're not seeing? Not, this is what I see and I'm absolutely sure of it. Is there something I'm not seeing in this thing that is in front of me? And then you come to it again. Is there something I'm not seeing? And that's why I put up in the poll. Did you guys learn anything from this fourth and final visit this summer to Posse Lake? And I learned something. I learned how fast the water was receding. I appreciated the view from that other spot back towards that isthmus, which you can't really tell from Google Maps. You can't really, even if you put it on satellite, you can't really see it. So your going there really did show that. And what you call the debunking Doug video, where you turn from the campground, I really I had no idea what that looked or felt like until you made that video. And do you think that steep path, that steep road, is what he was talking about? It's quite a narrow road and it's quite rutted. Do you think he was talking about that as the path?
I think it was right when I turned off of the pavement and did that first big clunk down. I think that's the part he was talking about. I would not take an RV down there, and I would bet money that nobody else has ever taken an RV down there either.
Because he did talk about, he almost rolled it, but do you remember he said a deep rutted path? He said it was almost not a road, just like a path. That did seem like a really narrow road that you would maybe describe as a path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, it looked like, all I'm saying is when I saw that looked like he'd misunderstood that the party was actually not at the campground, it was actually somewhere else. Because otherwise you wouldn't describe that at all, because that's not on the route from where Kiely would have turned off. If she was coming from the sanctuary, she wouldn't have gone on that road at all. So there's no need to mention it.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you, it's never been a chore for me to go to Truckee. It wasn't. I've just felt called to each time. I am a mountain girl that's currently stuck in a valley, so it gave me an excuse to get back up to the mountains. And I really wanted to do that with Gabby Petito because I lived in Jackson Hole for over a decade. I camped at Spread Creek, and I felt a calling to be there, but I just couldn't. It was too far, and the timing wasn't right for me. And then it just, Kiely's case came up, and I'm like, I need to get up there. And each time I I just felt called to, and it's definitely not a chore. You never asked me to, but each visit had its own theme. I didn't even know, but each visit had its own theme. And when I was there on the 18th and 19th of August, I mean, she was found just a couple days after that. I didn't know. I was standing right there on that point, 50 feet from her. I mean, it's a really weird feeling knowing I was standing right there and she was right there too.
Yeah.
You know, each visit had a theme, I know, and this last one for me was definitely a closure theme, and I'm hoping that there's some closure for the town too. I really felt a kinship to the town. And the things that I will carry with me was just being able to meet her parents and Lindsay's heartfelt hug. I mean, I felt it from my tingling hair down to my toes that she just would embrace so wholly a stranger despite knowing what was being said. I mean, I know she knew a lot of things that were being said. And someone that can look in your eyes and freely give that expression and embrace to someone, I will carry that with me. And the conversation with Daniel, he was just very direct and to the point. I mean, we talked about accidents. He had no ill feelings toward law enforcement, and just, he said, it is what it is. I have to do what I have to do. And it just takes me back to Gabby Petito again, where it's just, let it be. Just need to let it be.
Well, it's interesting that Jagger, quite early on, do you remember when AWP found the vehicle? Jagger said something like, you see, it's not foul play, whatever. Well, so you had an 18-year-old that looked at that and basically figured it out. An 18-year-old, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, just find that quite interesting.
Yeah, me too. Well, I wore this shirt today. Squaw Valley, formerly known as Squaw Valley, it's Palisades, Tahoe now, out of respect for Indigenous peoples. But that's only 10 minutes from Truckee. You know, everyone thinks it's just this weird cult thing. Nobody can get in or out of there, and it's all a big cover up. They had the Olympics there, 10 miles away. I mean, there's so much to do. It's such a vast and diverse population of people, and I wanted to wear this today, showing that there's a lot more to Truckee than what people think that they know about it. And you know, if they can't figure that out and take some time and listen to some locals or read some things, then it's not for them to know. You know, it's not for everybody. And the people in Truckee probably want to keep it to themselves anyway. I would not blame them. So,
you know, Terry, the one of the reasons I think this case went the way that it did was there weren't really any locals from Truckee that were social media mavens or social media. So in other words, no one there really cares about it. They are outdoor folk. They are, some of them are quite simple folk, but they're also community oriented folk. They're not really interested in social media. And when it went onto social media, they didn't really deal with it. Social media can be quite grateful that that's the case, because if someone did, they would have been, I think, put in their place. You have the same with Adnan Syed. If the victim's family had stood up, and you know, you often have, because of that space of silence, the social media just fills that space. It fills that vacuum. And in the Adnan Syed case, if the victim's family had not been, you know, like, I've lived in South Korea, and I know a lot of South Koreans are quite conservative. They're quite sort of insular in a way. But if they were unlucky enough that somebody debunked every episode of Serial or challenged every episode or whatever, you wouldn't have had the unopposed narrative that emerged, right? But the fact that you had one person's voice being conveyed and not the opposing narrative, that's how you end up with such a distorted narrative in the first place. That's the impression I got. I try to, and I think you did as well. We tried to, I think, provide almost as a proxy the narrative from Truckee in a way. We tried to do that. And you did a really good job at that, especially by going there and by letting the landscape speak. And we're going to play out with that. But you did a really good job of leading us by the hand into this space and showing us another side to it, I think.
Just that any of you would want to listen to this gives me hope. Just that a lot of people wouldn't even want it. They don't want to hear this part of it. They want to hear what, goes along with their beliefs here. So thank you for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. We're not going to take it further than that. And we are going to play out with this 1 minute long video from the, what do you call it? The wind chime hill.
Yes.
So we're going to play out with that. Before we do the poll, I asked you to vote. If you haven't voted, you can vote right now. Did you learn anything from Terry's final visit to Prosser? So far, 2/3 said yes. So that's quite a nice, it's quite a nice pat on the shoulder for you, Terry.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being kind.
Terry, thanks a lot for being here. I must say, when I look at myself on the screen, I think, wow, you look miserable. Myself.
I look miserable?
No, I look miserable.
Oh. I'm like, you could have told me that 3 hours ago.
No, I look miserable. You look good. I think I'm a little overworked and lots of other things going on. So I think I need to kind of take a bit of a break.
That would be good. You said before that you were taking October off. I don't know what happened to that.
No, I think November.
Oh.
Didn't I say November?
I thought you said October, but too many things have been happening. Yeah, you and Timmy need a vacation.
Yeah. Okay. But do you agree? Don't I look a little miserable? Not right now while I'm smiling, but. No comment. Okay.
No, you don't. I don't know. I don't think you look. You look the same. You always look good. You look great. Sound great too.
What's on the agenda for tomorrow? What are you doing on your Sunday?
I'll be working tomorrow. Okay. Maybe watching some football. I've kind of let the football season slip away from me, so maybe watch some football. Go for a walk. It's finally cool. It's finally cool temperatures here. I don't know if Helena's in the chat, but we had a long, hot summer here.
What's crazy is here, it feels like it's instantly boiling hot. Like we've already been having heat waves, and it feels like you were sort of waiting for it to warm up a little bit so you could go cycling. And now it's like, if you want to go riding, you're going to have to get up really early, like just after dawn, in order for it not to be too hot. So we'll see. But I must say today, it rained briefly. We had a nice shower of rain. And as it happened, a big rain spider as big as my hand was crawling up the door. So that was quite a shock to see. But in a way, I like that. It's a sign of life, Although I'm afraid of spiders, and especially those are terrifying spiders, it's a sign that there's life in my garden, and I'll take that as opposed to a sterile garden, with nothing else,
Definitely.
Okay, so we're going to play out with this really moving piece. I want to ask chat to stop chatting so you can pay attention to this. I also want to thank the members that are here. I want to thank the mods that are here. Bria, Sharon, I think is still here. Thank you guys for being here. All the subs as well. Thanks for the super chats, but most of all, thank you to Terry for taking your own personal time, going to the effort to go to this spot and taking us kind of with you in such a meaningful and sensitive and important way. Thank you very much for that. I'm really grateful, but I think this channel is as well, and this case needed that. This case needed you.
Thank you for saying that. And
It's
thank you all
true.
for being open to listening to it.
Okay, so cheers, guys, and we are gonna now play out. Okay, so thanks, guys. Take care. All the best.